Welcome to the Pint Glass Football Podcast.
What's up, PGF Nation? Super Bowl 60 is here. We're going to preview the game with matchups to watch, X Factor players, our favorite prop bets, Super Bowl MVP betting odds, and of course, we're each going to make our picks for who we think is going to win this game. We're also going to make betting picks on the spread, the over-under. We're going to attack it from all angles here. I'm your host, Brad Fowler, my co-host, Alex Higdon. Alex, Super Bowl 60, man. Can you believe it?
Yeah, man. I mean, we went through these few weeks where once Josh Allen was out for the AFC, then it became a who's who is going to make it, because normally we've always had Lamar, Josh Allen, or Patrick Mahomes, with all three of those guys being out for the first time, and then Joe Burrow in between there. This was going to be the first time. This was going to be new. This was going to be a new feat for whichever team made it out of the AFC.
I think it was kind of refreshing. It was kind of refreshing this year. I'm glad it's not the Chiefs, right? Nothing against the Chiefs, but I'm tired of seeing them in the game every year. I'm glad it's not the 49ers. I'm glad it's not, the Eagles. I'm glad it's not some of these teams that we've seen repeatedly in the last, 4, 5, 7 years. It's nice to see some new faces, some new coaches, some new teams, some new quarterbacks, with some really fun storylines that I can't wait to get into, Alex. But let's jump into the game. Like I said, we're going to get to a lot of different stuff here, X Factors, prop bets, all kinds of fun stuff. But let's talk about this game here, because for me, I think the key to this game, and a lot of people have talked about it, but I think a lot of people are talking about it for a reason. Seattle's pass rush versus that Patriots offensive line and being able to heat up Drake Maye, I think is key, right? Drake Maye played at an MVP caliber level this year. His play has dipped a little bit in the playoffs. His defense and the rest of the guys have kind of picked him up, but he's been sacked 15 times in 3 playoff games. That's one of the highest postseason totals we've ever seen. We know the Seattle defense is legit. It's built to be able to pressure with 4 guys. They don't have to blitz a lot. New England's offensive line, like I said, has been a bit of a liability here. It's probably the weak point on this team. So this is a matchup that a lot of people are circling here. I think if Seattle wins consistently up front, I think this game could tilt in their favor. That's why I think this is a key matchup.
When you look at the Patriots, your record is whatever your record is. Yeah, since week 6, they've only played 2 teams with winning records. So since week 5, they played Buffalo. So since week 6, they played New Orleans, Tennessee, Cleveland, Atlanta. Tampa Bay had a winning record. The Jets, the Bengals, the Giants. And Buffalo had a winning record. Baltimore, the Jets, and then Miami. They have not played anyone up to any type of where they faced a defense that was up to what they're about to face right now. So what I'm saying is this defense is going to be for real, even though it is a real defense. It's going to be for real against Drake Maye for the first time. I think he's going to have a tough first half. Now, I think he may straighten out in the second half, but he's going to have a tough first half.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They did get by with a fairly easy schedule. There's been a lot made of that. The one thing I will say, though, is they have faced some really good defenses in the playoffs. Now, to the point I made about Drake Maye playing in the playoffs, he hasn't been great against these upper echelon defenses. But if you look at the Chargers, you look at the Broncos, the Houston Texans, like these are really high level defenses. These are all top 10 level defenses. Now, Seattle might be better than all of them, to be fair, but they have passed the test, right? But I think that another key here is going to be, because we're talking about Drake Maye, but I think if I'm Josh McDaniels and I'm putting together this game plan, I think they've got to be patient with the run game. I think it has to be something. They cannot go away from the run to protect Drake Maye. This is going to be a game where I think Travion Henderson, I think Ramondre Stevenson both have to be a factor. Now, I'm not saying they have to have big games, because quite frankly, I don't know if they will, but they have to be a consistent factor that Seattle has to consider. And I think inside of that, to go a little step further, I think Henderson is a key player to watch. If the Patriots are going to have success on offense, I think Henderson might be a bigger factor, because I'm expecting some screens, maybe a little more screen game than we've seen from the Patriots, to try to offset that pass rush, to try to kind of slow those guys down. So I'm expecting a pretty good dose of Stevenson and Henderson, maybe some 21 personnel, giving some wrinkles here and putting some things out there for Seattle to kind of have to think about, because we know Seattle has the best run defense in the NFL. You don't want to get in those obvious passing situations. You don't want to get in those situations where Drake Maye is in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 and long. Those are going to be tough. That's when you're going to risk big sacks, big turnover type plays. And if you look statistically, Drake Maye struggles when he throws over 33 times in a game. The Patriots are actually 3 and 8 when he throws over 33 times. So being patient with the run and setting Drake Maye up for success versus this high octane defense, I think is going to be key in this game.
Yeah, and I think, and to be honest with you, on the other side of it, I think Sam Darnold is going to have some issues too, because JSN is going to be covered by Christian Gonzalez, right? That's not, this is, to me, this is top 5 echelon coverage that he's going to get from Christian Gonzalez. He's not going to be able, well, as we look at it player to player, he shouldn't be running free. It doesn't mean he's not going to get catches. It just means he may go 10 for 65 as opposed to 10 for 125. And that's a big difference in what Christian Gonzalez coverage is against, Emmanuel Forbes. But I'm saying that JSN is going to be covered. So I think both quarterbacks are going to struggle a lot in that first half.
I'm glad you brought up this matchup, because I had this in my notes, Alex. This was the key matchup for me in this game. Christian Gonzalez versus JSN. You've got one of the best corners in the National Football League. You have one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. This is going to be a matchup to watch. I'm going to be curious to see if Gonzalez travels with JSN. We've seen him do that in the past. Or if it's just going to be situational matchups. How they utilize Gonzalez versus JSN is going to be interesting, because we know, early in Jaxon Smith-Njigba's career, he played primarily in the slot. Well, they're moving him around a lot more now. So he's lining up outside. He's lining up in the backfield sometimes. They really move him around. So how they move their defense around is going to be really interesting. Gonzalez, we know, is one of the best man-to-man cover corners in the game. Might be a situation where he shadows them, but I expect JSN to be in motion a lot in this game, because I think it's 2 things. They're going to try to test to see what type of coverage is Darnold getting. Are they in zone coverage, or is Gonzalez traveling with him? Are they going to roll safeties to his side? That chess match is going to be really, really interesting. And if Christian Gonzalez can kind of disrupt JSN early, because we know Sam Darnold, when you watch the tape, JSN is not only his go-to guy, it's his first progression. Almost every passing play, it is almost exclusively JSN as his first progression. If you can take away that first read and force Darnold to get to his second read, get to his third read, now you've got a chance to have your pass rush get home. Now you've got a chance to force other guys to beat you. And it brings me to another point here. Cooper Kupp is a guy to watch in this game. Cooper Kupp over 3.5 receptions is my favorite prop bet in this game, because I'm with you. I don't think Gonzalez is going to erase JSN, right? I don't think he's going to take him away, but I think there's a chance that he slows down his production. And the other part of this too is I do think Vrabel is going to do everything in his power to design, his staff, I should say, and him are going to design everything in their power to try to limit JSN and take him out of the game plan. So early in this game, especially, I think Darnold is going to be forced to go to his other guys. And we know Cooper Kupp might not be the player he was in his Triple Crown year, but he's still a very reliable player for Darnold to go to. And I think he's going to have a lot of one-on-one coverage in this game. So I like Cooper Kupp over 3.5 receptions. Maybe he doesn't have a huge statistical game, but I could see him leaning on him, especially as a chain mover and kind of a safety valve in this game, depending on how much coverage we see towards JSN. So that's my favorite prop in this game.
Yeah, I mean, basically, Christian Gonzalez, you follow JSN, and I'm running my defense any other way. If I want to run zone blitzes, I don't care. You cover JSN, we'll take care of everything else. And that's what I would do. And then I'll adjust as I have to adjust. But I'm starting out there.
Yeah, I think there's a couple other points here about this game that I think are key that I want to touch on here, Alex. I think the playoff scoring drought, or I should say maybe they're not drought, but the drop off that we've seen from the Patriots is a little bit alarming going into this game. Regular season, they averaged almost 30 points a game. It was second best in the NFL. In the playoffs, they're averaging 18 points a game. We talked about they faced 3 really high-level defenses, so that definitely has something to do with it. But here they are facing another one. So how are they going to manufacture points? Because no team in the last 45 years has made the Super Bowl averaging 18 points per game in the playoffs in one. So this is going to be a situation where how do you manufacture touches for certain guys? How do you generate easy reads for your young quarterback? How do you keep on schedule so you're not in those third and long situations? This could be a game where the first team to 20 wins. I think this could be a fist fight. I think this could be a low-scoring game because I think, to your point, I think New England's defense is a little bit underrated. I think there's so much talk about Seattle's defense and how great they are, and rightfully so, that I think we might be overlooking just how good this New England defense has been playing in its own right.
Yeah, and that's why I flipped it when I said, we also have to talk about what New England's defense can mean to Sam Darnold. That's why I said they're both Sam Darnold and Drake Maye, I think, should both be slow in that first half, and it should maybe switch up depending upon what they do during halftime. The longer halftime, shout out to Bad Bunny, but the longer halftime where they sit and they try to figure out what's gonna happen there, because Milton Williams and those guys, Spillane, the rest of those guys are coming too. Vrabel, just similar to Macdonald, is a defensive coach as well. So these guys are both mirrored at the same. Now you might like Macdonald more, or somebody might like Vrabel more, or however you do it, but they're both defensive guys coming on at the same time. Now with the running backs, I think Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet's out. I guess he's done for the season, but Kenneth Walker can break one. Obviously, Travion Henderson can break one. So this might come down to maybe one of the running backs breaking along, having a long run that kind of breaks up the first half to whatever it is. But I think this is definitely going under no matter what.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up the coaches here, because Mike Macdonald, young coach, obviously this is his first time in the big game. You've got a young offensive coordinator, Kubiak, going up against Vrabel and McDaniels, who now this is Vrabel's first Super Bowl as a coach, but these two guys have a lot of Super Bowl experience. These guys have been here a lot. How much weight do you put into that versus this other coaching staff for Seattle that hasn't been here, right? And this New England team, now their team, not a lot of Super Bowl experience on either side, but the coaching staff is definitely prepared as far as knowing what to expect in a game like this.
So right now, I'm going with Seattle. That's who I'm going with. I haven't figured out a score, but I'm going with Seattle. And the reason I'm going with Seattle is simply because of what I said before. They are the more ready team. They have faced better teams. Like if you go down the stretch who Seattle has had to face, going all the way back to San Francisco, not the playoff game, but going all the way back to San Francisco, where they had to battle it out with them. I think that second game or first game, and they won. I guess San Francisco won the game on a weird catch by Jennings or whoever it was, but they won the game. So they've been that to me, I guess, you can count the NFC North as well, but that to me has been the toughest schedule this season, has been the NFC West. You had 3 teams make it in that division. It was a battle every single game, and they had to take each other out. So just simply by that, I think that Seattle, just based upon the journey that they had to go through the season, the journey they had to go through the playoffs, they are more battle tested and they're ready to go. Because if we just take a look at New England, like I said, since week 6, they've only played two winning teams. Then they played the Chargers. Then they played an ineptitude Houston offense that had no Nico Collins. The offensive line was messed up. The Houston Texans defense was still good. And then, I know they scored 18, but the Denver game, you kind of got to throw it because of the weather. But then they faced Denver without Bo Nix. So they have not faced anybody. Now that doesn't mean that they can't win, but if you're just asking me for right now, I'm going with Seattle to win this game.
New England faced 3 really good defenses in the playoffs, but from the as far as their defense facing these offenses, you've got the Chargers, whose offensive line was the worst in the league, C.J. Stroud with an absolute meltdown of a performance, and then you have a backup quarterback in Jarrett Stidham in a blizzard. So it definitely kind of caught some breaks as far as their defense not facing anything like this. Sam Darnold in this offense, top 10 in EPA. They're a very balanced team, run pass, very well schemed up team from Clint Kubiak. And here's the thing, Sam Darnold led the league in turnovers, which definitely has to make you a little bit nervous if you're a Seattle fan, just knowing that sometimes he has games where turnovers come in bunches. So that could definitely be something that would flip this game for the underdog, so to speak, if Sam Darnold turns into Same Darnold, as you see online all the time. But I will give Sam Darnold credit, though. He has dramatically reduced the turnovers under pressure in the postseason. So the regular season, yeah, he turned over a lot. He's been a lot better in the playoffs. So that's something to watch, because I do think a turnover, a big explosive play, those types of things could really swing this game, because a lot of people are picking a blowout here. And look, I'll get to my pick here in a minute, but I don't see a blowout here. I just don't. I think these are two really well-coached teams. These are two really talented teams with a lot of big-time players, and I just can't imagine one team blowing out the other. Now, it's possible, of course, anything happens in the Super Bowl. Sometimes momentum, a couple big turnovers, and a team can pull away, but I don't see it happening that way. I've got two X factors. I've got an X factor for the Patriots, and I've got an X factor for Seattle, and I'm going to start with my New England X factor. A guy to circle in this game, Marcus Jones. This is a guy who could be an instant point threat, right? An explosive home run type of hitter on the defensive side, because this is a guy who's got pick sixes and punt returns in multiple games, including the AFC divisional round with an interception return. This is a guy who can flip the field with a big play, a big pick, or a big punt return. This is an all-pro kick returner. This is a kind of game where special teams can flip a game. A close game like this, a big return could be the difference in this game. He is a guy that I think you have to circle in this game as a potential X factor. I just mentioned how Sam Darnold, even though he's been great, he can be turnover prone. If he throws a big pick six to a guy like Marcus Jones, maybe he's trying to avoid Christian Gonzalez, and Marcus Jones comes up with the big play. Or, like I said, he's so good as a special teams return guy, maybe he breaks off a big punt return for a touchdown. A play like that could be the difference, and that's why I'm circling him as my Patriots X factor.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
I've got another X factor for Seattle. We talked about Cooper Kupp, JSN. We know about Kenneth Walker. A lot of these big names we know. How about Rashid Shaheed, a guy they brought over in a trade for the Saints? He's another guy, a special teams threat here. 3 total return touchdowns from the kickoff and punt standpoint, including that 95-yard playoff opening kick a couple weeks ago. A guy that similar to Marcus Jones, can flip the game with a big play, an elite special teams type of play. He's a guy that's not going to get a lot of volume, but he's a very dangerous player with the ball in his hands because of his speed, because he can break away. He can turn a small gain into a big play with just one missed tackle, right? So he's a guy to watch in this game as a potential X factor. And here's another prop that I'm going to throw in that I really like. How about Shaheed for an anytime touchdown? Because I could see him getting, like I said, an explosive play down the field in the passing game, especially like we talked about. If JSN is bracketed and he's got to go somewhere else, maybe Shaheed gets a good look on the outside and gets a big play in this game, or in a potential special teams role. Could be so I like the odds there for a prop bet for an anytime touchdown for Shaheed. And you know what? If you really want to take a long shot, you could take one for Marcus Jones too. That's probably got, I haven't looked at the odds of that. Probably got really good odds for him. But regardless, 2 guys that I think we got to watch in this game.
Yeah, I would definitely look at, I know what you said about Marcus Jones, but I would really look at Rashid Shaheed and what he is able to do and what he'd be able to do in that offense, because he returns punts, he runs the ball, and he also catches the ball. So he can affect the ball he could affect the game in 3 different ways. So he's going to get his hands on the ball a lot more than what Marcus Jones would be. And I think Marcus Jones would either be covering Shaheed or he'd probably be covering Cooper Kupp, whichever way that they go. So I actually look at Shaheed as probably the guy.
The official ticketing app of Pint Glass Football is now SeatGeek. I can't recommend them enough, guys. I've been using SeatGeek for years. You want to go to a game this season? SeatGeek is here to take the confusion out of buying tickets, making sure you get the best seats at the best prices. With SeatGeek, you'll never have to worry about overpaying for tickets again. How? They put a 0 to 10 score on each ticket, so you know you're getting a good deal. But here's the real game changer. You can get $20 off your first ticket purchase with the code PGFPOD. That's right, $20 off with code PGFPOD. This season, make every game day epic with SeatGeek. Download the SeatGeek app and remember to enter the code PGFPOD to grab your $20 discount. All right, you got any other prop bets for us, Alex? Any props you like here in this game?
Yeah, Kayshon Boutte. Watch Kayshon Boutte because I think the advantage that the Seahawks have is the fact that they don't have a guy. Like when you play Seattle, it's like, okay, you have to stop JSN. That's the guy you have to stop. When you play New England, it's like, well, who do I have to stop? Who is the guy that, yes, Diggs has 1,000 yards, but he just has 1,000. He just basically got over 1,000 yards. That last game is when he got it. It's really whoever is open in that offense. They don't have a guy that you have to key on that you're playing against. You're playing against the entire team. So you have to pick who you want. You have to pick who you want to stop. So I think Boutte can be a guy that can sneak out of there with New England.
Yeah, maybe an anytime touchdown bet on him. I'd like the odds on that for sure. I like the odds for Travion Henderson. I think, like I mentioned a minute ago, I think he's a guy that you could look at some props for, some over props, I should say, with Travion Henderson, because I think he's a guy that I think could have a bigger role in this game plan, because I just have a feeling we're going to see a lot of screen game and we're going to see some halfback draws. We're going to see some quarterback rushing, which here's another prop. How about the over on Drake Maye rushing yards? I think Drake Maye has to be a factor with his legs. That's when their offense is usually at its best, is when Drake Maye is a threat to run, especially with how suffocating this defense can be. I could see them telling Maye, hey, if it's not there, if you don't see it, take off. Be quick to take off and force them to defend you as a runner, because that could open up things in the passing game. So I like Drake Maye on the ground as well here. So I pulled up the Super Bowl MVP odds from FanDuel, and I'm not going to go all the way down the list because there's several that just don't matter. But I basically am looking at some of the top 7-8 guys here. Sam Darnold at plus 115. Look, it's almost always a quarterback on the winning team. So I get it. They're the favorite. Plus 115. Okay, it's a safe bet. I don't think it's a good bet, though, because where's the value in that bet? I'll tell you some value picks that I do like. How about Drake Maye plus 230? If the Patriots pull off the upset here, there's a really good chance Drake Maye has a good game and ends up with the MVP. Yeah, and at plus 230, those are nice odds here. Jaxon Smith-Njigba plus 550. I mean, like we've talked about here, star receiver. If he goes off in this game, maybe a couple touchdowns. You know, Sam Darnold could have a 14 for 19 game, but if he throws 2 touchdowns and they're both to JSN, it might actually swing the vote to JSN, right? Where it's like Sam Darnold's stats don't blow you away, but JSN has, $150 and 2 touchdowns or whatever it is. That's something to watch. Kenneth Walker plus 850. Talk about some good odds there. Seattle, I think, is going to have to show some bounce in this game, and I expect them to show bounce. That's who they are, right? And now you've got Zach Charbonnet, who's out for this game. So Kenneth Walker is going to take on an even bigger role. So I expect him to get a lot of touches in this game. So maybe he gets in the end zone a couple times. Maybe he's a guy that you look at. How about a couple like real long shots that maybe are worth sprinkling a few bucks on? Stephon Diggs, you mentioned, plus 4,500. Maybe he's a guy, if he has a big day, gets into the end zone multiple times. At plus 4,500, I don't mind throwing a few bucks on that. Rashid Shaheed, who we just mentioned, plus 4,500. He's another guy. Maybe, let's say he returns one in the kicking game and then has a touchdown as a receiver.
Yeah.
That could be a guy that all of a sudden becomes a long shot that you like to look at. And here's a real long shot that I really like. Cooper Kupp plus 10,000. Come on now, plus 10,000. Is it likely? No, but this is one of the few guys on Seattle's roster who's been in this game. So I don't expect him to have any nerves coming into this game. I think he's going to be cool, calm, collected, and ready to play. And like we talked about, I think there's going to be a lot of coverage focused on JSN. Maybe Cooper Kupp is a guy that they go to early and often, or maybe they're forced to go to early and often. Maybe he ends up having a big statistical game and could be a good long shot. Like I said, I'm not throwing a ton of money on it, but just some bets to think about, Alex. Any bets that jump off the board for you?
Not really, not any of the ones that you mentioned, but I do like what you said something earlier about TreVeyon Henderson. I like TreVeyon Henderson from the Patriots making a play for TreVeyon Henderson. I already threw out Butte as a under the radar, but TreVeyon Henderson would be a guy that I would look at. To be honest, this might be the game that you actually have to look at the defense for.
It could be. And if those are when you're going to get really into the long shot bets, right? That's when you're going to look at guys and just, hey, throw some money on it because they're going to have huge odds on a defensive player. You're going to need a pick six type of play. You're going to need a scoop and score from Leonard Williams with with 3 pass deflections or something crazy, like in 2 sacks, right? Like it would have to be something kind of crazy, I think, for a guy like, I'm just throwing a name out there, like a Leonard Williams. He would have to have that kind of game, I think, to maybe get in this conversation. But if this game turns into a fist fight, a low scoring game, it could easily be a defensive player that maybe a guy comes away with 2 picks, right? Maybe Christian Gonzalez has 2 picks and a pick 6, and all of a sudden the Patriots pull off a huge upset. The offense doesn't do much, but the defense makes some big plays. Those are the kind of bets that are fun to look at for sure. So let's make our prediction here, Alex. It's like some of the stats that jumped out to me. Mike Macdonald, 6-0 versus first and second year quarterbacks. That's got to make you a little bit nervous here. Drake Maye, second youngest quarterback ever to start a Super Bowl. So does that make you nervous? On the other side, like we talked about, Sam Darnold, as good as he's been, is the spotlight too bright for him? This is a guy that we've seen have some pretty big meltdowns in some big games, right? Last year, he melts down in 2 huge games late in the year for the Vikings. If he doesn't melt down, he's probably still a Viking. Mm-hmm. Right now, he's been good in these playoffs, but this is a fascinating matchup, man, because I think who shows up and makes the big plays, who doesn't make the big mistakes, is going to be huge in this game. Give me your prediction, Alex. You picked Seattle, so You've got the Seahawks. Give me a score here. What's the final score of Super Bowl 60?
I'm going to go Seattle Seahawks 24-13 over the Patriots.
Okay, 24-13. You said?
Yeah, 24-13.
Okay. You know what? We're not super far off here, but there is one key difference, because then if you're taking Seattle with that point total, that means you're taking Seattle to win and cover, which is interesting. I'm going to take Seattle 17, Patriots 13. Seahawks win, but I like the Patriots plus 4.5 here. I think they find a way to hang around in that plus 4.5. I like that bet, and obviously with our point totals, we both like the under 45.5.
And I think one of those touchdowns comes defensively from Seattle too. So Seattle technically only scores 17 points offensively, but scores another 7 defensively.
Yeah, doesn't it just kind of feel like, and watch, it won't happen now. It'll probably be a shootout, but doesn't it just kind of feel like it's going to be low scoring field position game? I think we're going to see a lot of punts, which look, I know that's not the most interesting podcast talk, but the punter could play a role in this game on both sides. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I think back, now that I mention this, I think back to a Super Bowl where a punter played a huge role, and nobody really ever talks about it. But if you go back and watch Super Bowl, I believe it was Super Bowl 46, the Giants-Patriots rematch. So the rematch Super Bowl between those two teams, if you remember watching that game, the Giants punter pinned New England deep repeatedly in that game. And it felt like every single drive, Brady and the Patriots were starting inside their own 10. Every drive. And one of those punts led to a safety because Brady was forced to throw the ball away. It ended up being intentional grounding in the end zone because they were pinned so deep, if you remember, and it ended up being a huge safety play. Just something to think about, because when you're in a game like this where you do have two really good defenses and it could turn into a low scoring game, things like field position and punting could actually play a huge role in this game. But I think Patriots, the short area passing, it could be a situation where they struggle to generate explosive plays. Seattle is so good at not having small gains turn into big gains because they're such a good tackling team. They're so sound. So, how do you get those yak yards? How do you turn a 5-yard pass into a 12-yard pass? That's going to be an interesting piece to this game. I'm with you. I think this could be a 6-3 halftime score. So that's an interesting prop, right? First half under, that would be another bet that I would like in this game. I think the outcome of this game hinges on maybe 2 or 3 key explosive plays, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of them, but just 2 or 3 explosive plays. Somebody gets down the sideline, somebody breaks a tackle in the open field, somebody gets a punt return for a big 50-yard gain or a kick return. Something is going to be key. There's going to be 1 or 2 key plays that I think could swing this game. I also think 1 or 2 critical turnovers for either team could really decide things. I think special teams, like we've talked about, look, they don't get talked about a lot, but in games like this, they get highlighted. I think special teams are huge. I'm leaning Seattle slightly. I think there's been a lot of talk about Patriots getting blown out. And look, it might happen, but I just don't know, Alex. I think we're on the same page here. I think we see a fist fight with 2 really well-coached teams.
Yeah. Basically, like I said, I think it's going to go under. From a betting standpoint, I'd probably stay away from all of it from a betting standpoint. I wouldn't take any prop bets if I was a truly a betting person. I probably wouldn't take any prop bets for the most part. But I would bet who's gonna win the game, and I think that's gonna be Seattle here.
Yeah, and you've got Seattle to cover, which
yeah, and I definitely have Seattle to cover. Yeah.
Yep. And I'll take the Patriots to cover. We both like the under. Threw out some props for you guys as well. Alex is staying away, but how can you stay away from props on Super Bowl Sunday? Come on, Alex, let's go. You got to throw some props out there. It's the last game of the year.
I'm staying away from it.
Get on FanDuel, get some props going. Alex, before we get out of here, let's hit on some news and notes here real quick, because we didn't get a chance to talk about it. Our recent episode, obviously we shifted our focus to some NFL draft stuff. So guys, if you haven't already, go back and listen. We talked about our favorite Senior Bowl players, guys that are on the rise after the Senior Bowl. I put out the first half of my mock draft 1.0. We talked about where we thought some of these guys are going to go, guys that Alex didn't think would go, had some arguments there, but really, really cool episode that we're jumping into the draft stuff, and we're going to have a lot more of that coming. So like I said, go back and check that out. Go back and check out the newsletter, exclusive stuff coming out there as well. But when we were doing all that draft stuff, Alex, we didn't get a chance to talk about some of these recent coaching hires. And one of them is a guy that's going to be coaching in this game. Clint Kubiak is going to be the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. You mentioned it very briefly on last week's episode, or I should say this earlier week's episode.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts on him. I think he's a really high-level, bright, young coordinator. I like pairing an offensive guy with this new incoming rookie quarterback. So I like the pairing there. Only thing that makes me a little nervous is when you have a rookie coach with a rookie quarterback. That makes me a little nervous. But I like the hire on paper because this was a coveted guy. And let's face it, if they don't have the number 1 pick and Fernando Mendoza coming in, he might not have taken that job. So it could have swung things there, and things are certainly kind of looking bright for the first time in a long time for your Raiders.
I'll start with where we keep hearing there's a lot of talk about Max Crosby and what he wants and what he doesn't. Max Crosby is very straightforward. He doesn't put things out there that he doesn't want. If he wants to leave, he'll leave. If he doesn't want to leave, he's going to stay. And a lot of that set up around things that are kind of off the field. So we'll just wait and see what he wants to do. He'll let the Raiders know early. Second of all, I think I like the pairing of Clint Kubiak with Fernando Mendoza. I think Fernando Mendoza is mature. I like his head forth. I don't think he's going to be Pat Mahomes or anything like that. I think he can be Matt Ryan. And I believe it was you I was talking to that said, I think his low can be, oh gosh, what's my quarterback's name from the Bengals?
Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton, and the low could be Andy Dalton, and I'm fine with that because that's basically, I guess you could probably kind of say what Derek Carr was with an ineptitude Raiders team. I will say this, I like the head coach. This is probably one of the first times where I say I like the head coach that they got. So that's number one. What I can say about the coaches that have come from the Sean McVay and I guess the Kyle Shanahan tree is none of the offenses have been good when people have been healthy. Obviously, everything that's going on in Miami, but when they have their quarterback, when they have these people, their offenses are good. It's just that he's gonna have to make a critical defensive coordinator choice that's going to be able to keep the defense on point so that they don't get caught up in run all over the place and run amok. But that's the key thing is that the offense is going to be, he's coming in where he's going to have Fernando, he's going to have Genty, he's going to have Bowers, and then perhaps Rashid Shaheed. That's another thing that's been talked about on the side. And then he has to straighten out the offensive line, but he's going to be able to do what he needs to do on offense. So those are the things that I'm key on that I like about him coming on to this team.
Great scheme guy, great play caller, a guy who layers plays, a guy who's not just picking plays off a sheet. He is picking plays with a strategy in mind, with a game plan in mind, picking plays to set up other plays. So that's what the best offense coordinators in this game do. Like you said, he's from the Shanahan McVay tree, which at this point, who isn't?
Right. Yeah.
80% of the NFL, I swear, is running some version of these guys' offense at this point. You know, I get that hire for sure, but he does seem like a very bright offensive mind and a guy who, look, his dad played in the league, coached in the league, was a high level coach. So this is a guy who's not only comes from a really good coaching tree, but just been around the game and understands the game and has been around it for a long time.
They also have the second biggest free agency pool there where they can spend some money. So I said Rashid Shaheed because we were talking about the Super Bowl, but there's other players out there that they'll be able to go out there and get as well.
Yeah, I believe, what did I read? I think they have the second largest cap space.
Yeah, they'll have the second largest behind, I believe it's the Titans.
Yeah, and so that's obviously good because if we remember, there was a 4-win team last year that had a whole bunch of cap space who's playing in the Super Bowl this year with a young quarterback. Now, I'm not saying the Raiders are going to be the next Patriots here, but I am saying is that when you get the coach right, you get the quarterback right, and you have a lot of cap space, all of a sudden you can flip a roster pretty quickly. We saw they made a lot of moves this offseason to upgrade that roster, and clearly it paid off because here they are with the chance to bring home another Lombardi. So things are looking good for the Las Vegas Raiders, or should I say my co-host Alex Higdon's Las Vegas Raiders. For sure, man.
One more with the Cardinals, LaFleur.
Well, that's right. The Cardinals taking Mike LaFleur.
Another guy from the same allotment of coaches, McVay and Shanahan.
They are a branch right off of that tree for sure. I think he's a good coach, but at this point, like, you were kind of just musical chairs and the music stopped. I mean, am I wrong here? I mean, I was like, did anybody want this job? Did anybody want to coach the Cardinals? Like, there was a few teams that it became really clear during this coaching cycle who the good jobs were and who weren't. Because, man, we saw quickly the ones who filled up and got the really high-level candidates and the guys who were just looking around saying, hey, did anybody want to take the OC job in Philly? I mean, for real? Like, how many people turned that job down? And what is it? Apparently not. I mean,
well, no, I'm saying the play. So. I should say on paper, it's a very good. You look at it on paper, but you know what? I'll say this, and I mentioned this quickly. I think last week with everything going on with the Cardinals, I don't know. We talked about during the season. We saw what happened with Kyler Murray, and we said what we said about Kyler Murray. I don't think the Cardinals are ready to give up on Kyler Murray, even though Jonathan Gannon and what he did with the team showed that they wanted to give up on him. I don't think the Cardinals themselves, I think they still believe in the player. And I think that's because I don't think Jonathan Gannon should have been fired. I think he was doing a solid job. He was getting the defense going. but I don't think that he should have been fired. I think they fired him because he was ready to move on from Kyler Murray, and the Cardinals are not. So they made an about face and said, no, we're sticking with Kyler Murray, and Jonathan Gannon, you're gone.
And that exact decision is why they are the Cardinals. We'll just leave it at that, because I'm with you. I think he was a coach that, look, the wins-loss record, I get it. You are what your results are. I get it. But at the same time, I don't think he was a bad coach or a bad fit there. And I think he did have some momentum, even if it might not have looked like it in the win column. And now you push him out of town, and now you're starting over again. And I think he was right. The guy that needed to be pushed out of town was under center. And if that's the case, and you're right about this could come back to haunt him, because how many years has this guy been in the league?
He came in 2019, so this was his 7th year. So he's going to his 8th year. We're going
into year 8 here. I mean, I'm sorry. I've seen enough. I have seen enough. I mean, I really have. Multiple coaches now, multiple schemes, multiple play callers. It's still just not going in the right direction. And look, maybe that's harsh, but you were the number 1 overall pick. There's certain expectations that come with that. And he just hasn't lived up to anywhere close to that. They've been a bottom feeder year in and year out with him.
In the last 5 years, he's only played 1 full season. That was last year. That's it. He 14, 11, 8, and this year 5. Even though he was benched for some, but he did get hurt. He initially got hurt, and then he was benched.
Yeah, and there was a podcast host sitting in this room on draft night that said injuries could be a real issue with this guy. He's 5'9", 150 pounds or whatever he is. I mean, it's just what it is. And I said it when he came out of Oklahoma. I said, look, he's a talented guy. He's not built to be a franchise quarterback. And I said it then, a guy who runs around as much as he does at his size, there's a serious injury risk here. And you're right. He has not been able to stay healthy. And that's certainly part of the equation too. But yeah, interesting times for those last 2 hires and what direction they're going to go in. I definitely like the direction of the Raiders a lot more than the Cardinals, but Mike LaFleur, he's a respected guy in the league. Maybe he can get things turned around in Arizona. Who knows? That is going to do it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it, PGF Nation. Enjoy Super Bowl 60. I know I will. Of course, your host, Brad Fowler, my co-host, Alex Higdon. This is Pint Glass Football. More NFL draft talk is coming next. Of course, we'll do a little bit of a Super Bowl recap once the game is over, but then it is all NFL draft all the way through April. Man, it is going to be so fun. So guys, stay tuned for that. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button so you don't miss out on any of those future episodes. And of course, go to the website, pintglassfootball.com. Go to the newsletter so you get all of our bonus coverage as well, guys. That is going to do it, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Pint Glass Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at PGF Podcast.